And we will now have the lighting of the chalice, and we'll have Nan Bernardo come up. Nan is currently serving on the board. She lives in Searcy, and she drives a long way to be here each Sunday. You can find her out on the grounds, helping to take care of the grounds and keep them beautiful, and participates in our Young at Heart program, and is also a part of a covenant group. And Nan, we appreciate everything you do.
I light this chalice with these words. Open our eyes to see what is beautiful. Open our minds to learn what is true. Open our hearts to love one another. Please join me in the affirmation of covenant, which you will find printed in your service, saying, Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other.
Okay, now's the chance where I get to introduce John Willis. You've already seen him. You can see what he does. But let me tell you some official things about him. John is a local musician and music educator and leads music for churches and interfaith gatherings. I remember when John was here back in the early 2000s as our director of religious education. John really wanted to do something with music. So he resigned his job here, his source of income, and set out there to pursue his dream of music. We were sad to see him go, but we wished him well and sent him on his way, and this is what he has done. John now holds a Master of Arts in Music and Music Education at Teachers College, Columbia University. He has served as a musical director or pianist for numerous musical, theater, and operatic productions here in Central Arkansas. As a singer and songwriter, John has performed and recorded regularly since 2008, and his music was featured in the 2019 PureFlix film, Sweet Inspirations. I don't really understand this, but John is trained in all 3 levels of somatic voice work, the Lovitri method, and loves coaching singers. I could use some of that. John is a former Artist Inc. Fellow in 2013 through the Mid-America Arts Alliance and former advisory board for Akansa. I'm sure some of you know about that festival that happens here in Arkansas. He is the music director of the annual Interfaith Love Thy Neighbor Peace event that's been happening since 2000, or he's been involved with it since 2012. And some of us here in the congregation participated in the most recent one this year. And as a choral director and music educator, John is interested in the intersections between culturally responsive, sustaining pedagogies and music education. As a speaker, John loves to explore connections among religion, spirituality, and creativity, and that is just one of the reasons we invited him to speak today. You have many friends here, John, who welcome you home.
It's wonderful to be back. I thank you all for welcoming me back. I'm going to do something really quickly. And multiple sources of the time are helpful for someone with time blindness. So, thank you, Debbie, for that introduction. It saves me from having to catch you up on what I've been doing since 2008. But I'll kind of drop a little bit more into that bio. I was working as a professional musician here all around the state and other places since I left here in 2008, but something happened in 2018 when I took a day gig at a local school. It was going to be some good steady money, and I didn't have to work nights or weekends. I didn't have to take anything home, just show up and play for 4 choirs and then leave. And after about a year of doing that at Pulaski Academy, I fell in love with working with people, with music education. Just the simple act of running through a score with the basses or the tenors or the sopranos or the altos and seeing the magic happen when we all work together and seeing young people come alive through music. And I started talking to the choir director who I was working for. You think there's a place for me like for more than just these 4 choirs? And then the doors just started opening. So I went back to school for music education. I'm now a full-time music educator. I continue to perform and compose and arrange and music direct for theater. So to anyone who's considering, that old erroneous adage of those who can do and those who can't teach, it's utter horse manure. You find a way. Your creativity finds a way. And so I actually found that what brings me more sustained joy is working with other people, not being the person on stage all the time. I love doing both, but it's more sustained, a more sustained joy and enjoyment to collaborate. So I'm going to speak to you today as someone who has some experience, maybe a little bit of expertise in the field, but I'm also just speaking to you as a human that likes to sing with people. So there are going to be some collaborative elements of this talk. I invite you to participate as wholeheartedly as you can. I look forward to exploring why we sing together. So Walter Brueggemann, who's a minister, a scholar, and theologian, wrote a book a while ago called A Glad Obedience, Why and What We Sing. And he writes from a Christian perspective, but there's a lot of overlap and a lot of wisdom that we can gain from his example. So he was looking at the Psalms, and he found 4 basic trends in the Psalms, which are a collection of Hebrew rejoicings and celebrations and lamentations and prayers that were often captured in the form of song. So he found 4 basic trends, and I'm going to read these. So the first is, this first trend or dimension, as he called it, is songs that convey a sense of wonder and awe that issues an exuberant praise. I'll say that again. So there's the type of song that produces wonder and awe, that issues in exuberant praise. The second is remembering God's, or the world, or however you define that, good actions that move us to glad obedience. So music that stirs us to act in a particular way in the world. Songs that help us remember our own waywardness. Something that we definitely don't enjoy doing, but it's a necessary part of taking inventory and taking stock and seeing how we might wish to improve our way in the world. And then finally, songs that are acts of gratitude. So as I read through these 4 basic dimensions of singing, and this is singing within a faith community context. He was originally writing in the context of a church, a Christian church. I started seeing some parallels between these 4 dimensions and the UU traditions by which y'all and other UUs organize yourselves. So as I read about wonder and awe that issues in exuberant praise, I thought about the UU first tradition, direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder. As I read about remembering God's good actions that move us to glad obedience, I thought about the second tradition, words and deeds of prophetic men and women, and the fourth tradition, Jewish and Christian teachings, which call us to respond to God's love by loving neighbors as ourselves. As I read over remembering our own waywardness, I was again thinking about how the second tradition reminds us to recall words and deeds of prophetic people, which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. And as I read the fourth dimension, I thought of humanist teachings which counsel us to heed the guidance of reason and the results of science and warn us against idolatries of the mind and spirit. And as I reflected on songs that are acts of gratitude, I think about all of the many sources from which UUs draw their living tradition. We can find things to be grateful for in every aspect of our existence in the world. Brugman again calls these dimensions of humanness that are embraced as they are performed. They help us co-construct a world of gift that refuses the more conventional and pervasive world of commodity. I'm going to read that again. These are dimensions of humanness that are embraced as they are performed, that help us co-construct a world of gift that refuses the more conventional and pervasive world of commodity. It bears witness to an alternative reality, singing does, marked by bodily freedom, by uncensored articulation, and by full person engagement. These are Brugman's words, not mine. Bodily freedom, uncensored articulation, and full person engagement. Brugman recalls the biblical example of Miriam defying Pharaoh by singing and dancing, and of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King as a civil rights leader who utilized freedom songs as activism. Brugman calls singing an emancipatory practice of full-bodied selves in the image of God. So just sit with that phrase for a second. Singing is an emancipatory practice of full-bodied selves. How is singing an emancipatory practice? In all four of these dimensions, it's the participatory nature, that direct experience that UUs are so fond of, that makes singing a democratizing, unifying, and ultimately humanizing act. Those are my words. Democratizing, unifying, and humanizing. Humanizing in the sense that as earth beings, singing anchors us in the moment, with feet on the ground and simultaneously our heads in the clouds. And now for some direct experience. Does anyone know the composer Pauline Oliveros? Look her up. Spelled like olive with R-O-S on the end. Pauline Oliveros. Pauline Oliveros was a pioneer of electronic and experimental music, and also a devoted student of Tai Chi and other mindfulness practices, or what we today might call mindfulness practices. She became, as she continued to compose, more interested in the capacity for improvisation and collaboration through sound to help to heal and unify people. So, she developed a series of exercises, meditations, pieces that she called sonic meditations and deep listening pieces. As a composer and a performer, much of her work was geared towards improvisation and collaboration. The sonic meditations and the deep listening pieces embody this improvisatory and collaborative spirit and were believed by Oliveros to be healing on an individual as well as a communal level. So we're conveniently split right down the middle, so this makes my work really easily. We're going to practice one of these deep listening pieces. So this is called an antiphonal meditation. So antiphonal in the sense that we're going to be responding one to the other. So this group, y'all can be group purple, and y'all can be group red. All right, help me remember that. So I've got Anne's purple sweater, and I've got the red tam over here. All right, purple, red. Here's the instructions. A group of singers or instrumentalists divide evenly into two groups which face each other at some distance. So you can slightly cheat in towards one another if you like. Group red begins spontaneously or on cue to make a sound together. Group B then listens and responds by trying to imitate or echo the sound made by group red. So group purple listens and tries to respond to the action by group red. Then, group purple initiates a sound. Group red responds. Sound should last only as long as a breath. Okay, so just only as long as your breath allows. Silences between responses may be of any length, but must be sensed or cued by the group as a whole. Response might begin slowly, either with the initiating group's sound carefully considered by the other before responding, or with more immediate, spontaneous responses. The groups might gradually move toward each other and end the meditation as one group. There is no leader, just consensual activity. Now, if you're one of my neurodivergent friends, that just went. So, verbal directions mean nothing to me. So let me say it again in a different way. All right, so group purple is going to make, we'll do group red. Group red's going to make a noise. It's just going to happen. We don't have 30 minutes for this. We have just maybe 2 to 3 minutes. So something is going to happen with group red for as long as a breath lasts. And then whenever group red feels like it's time to stop and take a breath, group purple is going to respond by imitating that sound for as long as there is a breath. And then immediately and spontaneously and collaboratively co-create another sound until the breath runs out, or until it's time to take another breath. And then group red is going to respond. We'll try one volley and see how it goes. So, some of you are experiencing a little bit of anxiety. I encourage you to put your hands on your lap, settle into your chair, take some deep breaths, and trust that all we're going to be doing is making some noise. We're not judging pitch, intonation, articulation, anything like that. This is not a voice coaching session. This is just a moment of being human and making noise together. All right, so. Give yourselves a hand. Wonderful job. I am in the camp of believing that every person can sing. Some people have 3 notes that they can sing, and then the rest is sort of above and below those 3 notes. But the opportunity to sing with very wide parameters, the ability to participate without any strictures or any old wounds being triggered, hopefully, being told that our voices may be less lovely than whoever the archetypal voice was that we believe we should sound like. So thank you for your participation and your contribution in that sonic meditation. But again, why do we sing? I am inspired, and I have actually proposed a course, hope that it makes next year, in the upper school where I teach, based on the work of Alan Merriam, who was arguably the world's first ethnomusicologist who at least called himself by that name. He co-founded the Ethnomusicological Society, taught at Northwestern, University of Wisconsin, and Indiana University. These are all schools that are well known for their music programs. So Merriam, in a book called The Anthropology of Music, identified 10 basic functions by which humans have used music cross-culturally throughout the generations of human civilization. So those 10 basic functions of music are: 1, for emotional expression. That seems kind of obvious, right? Or we might think emotional modulation. I want to change the way I feel, or to sort of deepen or to extend the feeling that we're feeling. Number 2 is for aesthetic enjoyment. So when I think about aesthetic enjoyment, I think about, and this is a practice that's maybe dying out, or maybe a little bit rare at this time, which is sitting down and listening to a favorite album all the way through. Like at the end of the night in a comfy chair. Who does that or has done that as a practice in their lives? I know John Adams has. Next is entertainment. So this is another one of the more obvious ones: going to a concert, attending a recital, and so on and so forth. Number 4, communication. Music for communication, or singing for communication. So when I read singing as communication, I think about the cleanup song that we learn in elementary school. And I think about transition songs. Spirit of Life is a deeply spiritual and poetic meditation. It also signals us that the time of meditation is over. So that function of singing together that helps us convey where we are and where we're going. Number 5, symbolic representation. I think of the national anthem intoning the values of the land of the free and the home of the brave. Number 6, music as physical response. So we sing or we chant when our team scores, or everyone gathers together and it's time to celebrate the birthday person and we all sing happy birthday together so we can in some way coordinate our support and celebration of the person that we're celebrating. Number 7, this one I don't really love as much, except Rich gave me a better idea. So number 7 is enforcing conformity to social norms. I feel like that goes over in a UU congregation like a lead balloon. So when I read that, I think about music used as wartime propaganda to keep people towing a certain line. Or advertising. There are some of you that are old enough to remember the old "can pinch an inch on me." What is that enforcing? Diet culture. Standards by which someone should measure their own beauty. So I don't like those. However, as I listened to Rich sing "This Land Is Your Land," I thought, oh, that's a social norm to which we can all aspire. So thank you for that gift. Changed my perception of number 7. Number 8, validation of social institutions and religious rituals. So I think about singing the alma mater at graduation or at homecoming, and various liturgical music that moves us through our faith communities' celebrations. Number 9, contribution to the continuity and stability of culture. I think about world folklore traditions. I think about the Icelandic sagas. I think about the epics from other cultures. I think about the song lines from Aboriginal Australia. And I think about work songs the world over. Number 10, contribution to the integration of society. And I think of songs of the civil rights movement that we continue to sing that remind us that the work is still ongoing. Now, Liam Maloney, who's somebody who's a little bit younger than I am, took these 10 functions and wrote a dissertation on them and distilled them into 5 basic domains. Some of these functions of singing and of music address a cognitive domain. Some address a social group organization domain. Some of them address the individual's relation to the social group. Others address a physiological function, and then finally others address the emotional function. And his research showed that the emotional domain is actually the strongest, that we tend to gravitate towards singing and music more for a sense of emotional release or emotional stabilization than for anything else. The reason why I mentioned Maloney is he's also given me a big wallop for my talk, because the title of his work is called Music as Water. He argues that music, and I would argue singing, is an essential resource to which everyone should have access, that we would fare without it as we would without water. He also calls music a technology of the self, that we utilize singing, that we utilize the music that we sing together and on our own as a way of helping to evolve ourselves. This reminds me of the Gibran poem. As you've heard mention of the various ways that people throughout time and everywhere have connected through music, you've no doubt been coming up with a few examples from your own experiences. So I'd like for you to pause and reflect for a minute. Consider the following. What's your party anthem? What song did you dance to at your wedding? What song do you want sung at your funeral? Who will sing it? Will it be performed as a solo or sung by the congregation? What was your favorite song when you were 13? When you were 16? In your early 20s? What's your sad music? What song do you absolutely know all the words to? This is the one where I wish we had more time because I'd want to hear a few of you share. What song gives you a deep sense of belonging? What song evokes a sense of wonder and awe? What song motivates you towards justice or inspires you to act on behalf of the well-being of all? What song moves you to gratitude? Of these, how many have you or do you share with others, with friends, family, or in your faith community? Now, really briefly, it would be ridiculous for me to address a group of Unitarian Universalists and not mention science. So here's a few quick facts from the Chorus America study from 2019. It was a chorus impact study across generations. So adults who sing in choruses report significant personal benefits in feeling less lonely and more connected to others. Nearly 73% of responders said that choral singing helps them feel less alone or lonely. Compared to the general public, they're far less likely to report indicators of isolation or depression. Choral singers have stronger social skills and report stronger relationships. In fact, nearly 7 in 10 singers say that singing has helped them socialize better in other areas of their lives. Choral singers credit singing in a chorus with making them more optimistic, mindful, and resilient. 80% of singers report high optimism scores compared to 55% in the general population. Choral singers are more remarkably strong contributors to their communities. Chorus members are more likely to contribute financially and more likely to volunteer more frequently than the general public. 90% of singers report that they vote regularly in national and local elections, compared to 55% of the general population. Chorus members credit singing with helping them be better collaborators. Almost 2/3 of singers, 63%, believe that participating in a chorus has made them more open to and accepting of people who are different from them or who hold different views. Now, there's hope and lots of good news for singing and aging. Older chorus singers age 65 and up are less likely than the general public to say they have challenges with cognitive abilities. Older singers, ages 65 and up, engage in a broader range of activities than the general public in the same age and are more likely to continue working by choice. Overall, singers who are age 65 plus have fewer physical limitations than the general public of this same age. Don't follow that one too closely. That's one you'd want. That's one of those facts you'd want to sort of follow up a little bit. And finally, adults, singers of all ages report that being part of a chorus helps them feel less lonely. Older choristers are significantly less likely than the general population to say they feel left out or isolated from others. As I come to a close in this talk, the final little drop in the bucket of this exploration of singing for me is that music helps us to make meaning. One of my favorite poems of all time is written by Willis Stevens. It's called The Idea of Order at Key West. Every good English major has studied this poem. The first line says, "She sang beyond the genius of the sea." And later on in stanza 6, he says, "It was her voice that made the sky acutest at its vanishing. She measured to the hour its solitude. She was the single artificer of the world in which she sang. And when she sang, the sea, whatever self it had, became the self that was her song. For she was the maker. Then we, as we beheld her striding there alone, knew that there never was a world for her except the one she sang and singing made." Now, even though it's 2023 and I've read widely, I'm still at my core an existentialist. So when we start to talk about meaning and the various ways that we make personal and co-construct communal meaning, I often think of singing, the songs and the singing that mark the important times of our lives. Poetry, too. I love poetry. As I start to circle down towards the end of this talk, I also want to remind you of the words from Joy Harjo. considering how music helps us make meaning. When we sing, we praise the rain, the seagull dive, the dark, the moon cradle, the day, the cloud, the mind flat. We praise crazy, we praise sad, we praise the path on which we're led, we praise the beginnings and praise the endings, we praise the song and we praise the singer. I believe singing is an act of love. I watch the bonding that happens among choir members and among my students during spring musical season. Come see The Lightning Thief, April 14th through 16th at Pulaski Academy. And I have to believe it's not just the repeated physical closeness of rehearsals and productions, but it's the expression, the creativity, the collaboration, and the vulnerability we practice that helps us draw closer to one another. Singing effectively harmonizes our relationships with one another. When we show up during Sunday worship, or gathering around the table to sing happy birthday, or linking arms singing the alma mater at homecoming, or matching our favorite artist word for word at the concert or festival, we are co-creating meaning for each other and for ourselves. We hallow the moment in our singing together. And in the words of Harjo, in our mutual act of love, we praise the song and praise the singer.
And Nan, if you'll please step up, and we'll extinguish her chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of this community, or the fire of our commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Amen, blessed be, and namaste. And please join us for coffee and conversation in Thompson Hall in the Maida Wing following the service. Go now in peace. Thank you.